I need to pose.
I'll take those two items here.
Is this true?
Yeah. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Mr. Fredericks.
Good afternoon.
I want you to bear with me if that's all right today. There's a lot of stuff I want to cover. Is that fine with you?
Yes, sir.
And I'll be as brief and I'll try to get through it as best I can, but I may be a little slow. Is that all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to start with you testified on direct that you had a bachelor's degree in broadcast communications.
Correct.
You said on direct you had a degree in broadcast communications with an emphasis in engineering.
Correct.
Now this is your CV with all your stuff on it, and it doesn't say that on here. Is there any reason that's not in your CV?
It should certainly say, and it does say, that I have a degree in broadcast communications.
But not an emphasis in engineering?
No.
Okay. And for at least 5 years, you were in the news business.
Correct.
A reporter, anchorman?
Reporter, producer.
Okay, reporter and a producer. After that, you became a cop in Canada.
Correct.
And you did that just roughly how long?
12 years.
Okay. So then you became, I'm guessing you got into forensic video analysis when you were with law enforcement?
No, prior to that.
Okay.
And that's what made me interested to go into that area.
Okay, and then, so whenever that started, at some point you left the police department and you went into private work,
Correct.
doing pretty much this.
While I was at the police department, I became the head of the forensic video unit for the Vancouver Police. At that time, I was also teaching in Quantico. I was offered a job with a very large U.S. company that specializes in image processing. Largest customer was the U.S. federal government, and they offered me a job to manage their forensic video division. And that was in 2000, and that's when I left the police department and began working with this company. I also have my own company on the side doing forensic video analysis, so I was doing both the video analysis on the side and managing their forensic division as well. So doing two different things.
So are you still employed by both places?
No.
Okay,
no,
now you're just doing your business?
Correct.
And you own that business?
Yes.
All right. And that business is being hired by various agencies or individuals to perform video enhancement research or video forensic stuff. Is that right?
I'm hired by agencies, I'm hired by defense attorneys and by prosecutors.
Is most of your work legal in nature? related to courtrooms or trials?
Most of it is, yes.
Okay. The solicitor's office contacted you roughly when?
October, November 2014.
Okay. Now, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I think this is a good place to start because I want the jury to understand some of the stuff you were talking about. So, as an expert in forensic video analysis, you are familiar with reverse projection photogrammetry, but can you help me with that word?
Photogrammetry.
Photogrammetry. There's 3 words, right?
Well, reverse projection is a form of photogrammetry. There are many different photogrammetric methodologies depending on the specific nature of the work. Photogrammetry includes doing topographical, historical observations of satellite imaging.
Okay.
But it also includes, basically it's any process using a photograph or still image to make observations and conduct measurements.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I want to stick with just reverse projection. Talk about that, okay?
It's much easier, thank you.
Would you agree with me, and this is a general statement, but would you agree with me that reverse projection is what you would do to get the data that needs to be analyzed? Is it a means to that end?
Reverse projection specifically is the process of recreating the historic events with a contemporary camera view. I'm not sure of your definition.
What's your purpose of doing that? To obtain something to look at?
No, the purpose of doing it is to compare simply apples to apples, oranges to oranges, to make sure that we're using the historic conditions to recreate the positioning and lighting and compression system like the digital video recorder. So everything's repeated so that when we can make observations that are more accurately resemble the historic view.
Okay. But one of the things you're comparing is what you produced from reverse projection.
Exactly.
So you are creating something from reverse projection that you then can compare to something else.
Yes, sir.
So reverse projection is a method that you can use to produce data, or whatever you want to call it, to then analyze.
That's correct.
Or compare.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, headlight spread pattern analysis. That is something that falls under forensic video analysis, would you say?
It's one of the defined methods used to do comparison, yes.
Okay. So when you talk about reverse projection, you're talking about an area that is widely used, correct?
Yes.
That there are publications on it, correct?
Yes.
Okay. When we talk about a headlight, well, let me back up. You testified that the only difference between the known vehicle and the only other Ford F-150 you tested was the headlight spread pattern. Is that correct?
And the toolbox.
And the toolbox.
Yes.
Well, didn't you put a toolbox on the other one?
Yes, we put a toolbox on there in order to conduct that comparison.
Okay, so I'm talking about the test vehicle with the toolbox, the F-150, and the known vehicle, the Moorer vehicle. You testified the only difference between the two was the headlight spread pattern.
Just to clarify, because it's not specifically accurate, we actually had 2 vehicles of the same class. We had the known vehicle, which was a Ford F-150 limited edition 2013, and we had a comparison vehicle, which is exactly the same. The difference between the two is the headlights and the toolbox. The known vehicle had the toolbox in it. The test vehicle did not, so we took the toolbox in and out of the known vehicle. The test vehicle wasn't for that purpose.
What was the difference between the F-150 that they got for you to test, just took from somewhere, and the known vehicle? What was the difference? Was it the headlight spread pattern?
Yes.
All right. And you've testified that, based on your experience, that no two vehicles anywhere have the same headlight spread pattern.
That's my experience.
Okay. And is that based on analyzing, is that based on any studies that you performed? Have you ever set up a study, say, where you include 10,000 vehicles to study the headlight spread pattern analysis?
Well,
and then publish that study?
okay, there's several parts to that question.
Well, have you published a study based on headlight spread pattern analysis? Yes or no?
I just asked if Mr. Fredericks can answer one at a time.
Well, just restate the question, as I understand it, so let's move.
Have you ever published a study on headlight spread pattern analysis?
I have not, no.
Okay.
There have been many studies published on that, but I haven't published.
Okay. Where have they been published?
The National Highway Transportation Administration has published a number of studies on why headlights are different, and they've talked about safety and glare. There have been other publications by universities and by manufacturers regarding the differences in headlight spread pattern, and we use those studies in our training and body of knowledge.
Let me ask you specifically about the first one, the NHTSA study. Was that study focused in on headlight spread pattern analysis?
No, it was focused on why headlights are different.
Okay, why? And do you know in that study how they conducted that study?
I don't know the specifics about how they conducted the study. The study included reasons why different headlights have different features, the measurement process of trying to determine glare, and the purpose of it was to examine the concerns and the problems of safety regarding glare for oncoming vehicles, and then trying to establish a standard to eliminate or reduce the amount of glare. And all of the studies have found that they can't have a standard because there's so many different manufacturers of headlight components. There's so many different designs, different lighting systems, from HID to all sorts of different fluorescents. And so there's a frustration in the safety industry that standards can't be applied because headlights are so different from make to make and from vehicle to vehicle within makes.
Okay. So since they cannot establish a standard for that, is why you're testifying based on your experience today. Is that correct? And
Well,
not anything else?
No, that's not why I'm testifying. That's just one of the pieces of information that we study and consider. And you asked me if it's my personal experience that I have not seen vehicles of the same make and model with the same headlight pattern. I can explain that's correct. Why is that? Well, these studies tend to show why that is.
Okay. You've not seen it yet?
I have not seen it, correct.
You've not seen it yet? You may see it, but you haven't seen it.
Well, I've not seen it, correct.
Would you venture a guess at how many trucks there are in this country driving around? You have any ballpark figure?
In this county, there's 4 of that class. In the country, I can't tell you.
You're saying in the Horry County, there's only 4 2013 F-150s?
With HID lights, that's the information that I was provided, yes.
Okay. Where did you get your information?
From the investigators.
Did it work with the solicitor's office?
Yes.
Okay. Would you think there might be 500,000 to 1 million in this country?
I couldn't guess.
Do you know how many there are in Georgetown County?
No.
Or Marion County?
No.
Okay. If you look at your report on page 4 for me. And I'm pointing to the second full paragraph where it begins vehicles of the same class. You see that part?
Yes.
And your report in that paragraph says vehicles of the same class will also present differences to their headlight spread pattern, primarily due to wear and tear on the vehicle, road conditions, age, dirt on the composite lens, damage, condensation within the lens housing, and many other factors. That's in your report, correct?
Correct.
What are the other factors first?
Vehicle hits a speed bump hard, the G-forces could knock a bulb out. I've had cases where that's occurred. Bulbs diminish in their intensity as they get older. Some bulbs burn out. Obviously, impact from a traffic accident.
Okay.
The way that the manufacturer will adjust the lights, it's a manual process. They actually go inside and tweak the lights to camp them. An owner may want to change how the light is adjusted, and they go in there and adjust them because they can all be adjusted by the owner. So there's a lot of reasons.
Okay. Some of those reasons are already set forth here, like the age and the damage you
Yes,
put
sir.
in here. Now, are there any of those items that I just read out to you that are due to, that present differences? Are there any things on there that are not ever changing or changeable or malleable over time?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I understand your question. Can you repeat that, please?
All right. If I look at the headlights of a vehicle in 2008 and I look at them in 2010, there's going to be wear and tear on the vehicle, correct?
Yes.
And then that would be something that would go towards presenting a difference to the headlight spread pattern, correct?
Very likely, yes.
If I was driving down a certain type of road, you have road conditions, and I looked at the headlights a year before and then drove on the same road and the conditions had changed a year after, it could present differences in the headlight spread pattern.
It could, yes.
On the same vehicle.
Yes.
Same question with age on a vehicle, right?
Yes.
Dirt on the composite lens. If I had my vehicle and I looked at the headlight spread pattern analysis and then I went and I cleaned it out or had a good car cleaning, it would change the headlight spread pattern analysis, correct?
It could, yes.
Same with damage, right?
Yes.
If I had my vehicle and I had condensation in the lens housing, and then a couple months later I didn't have condensation in the lens housing, my headlight spread pattern could be different.
It would, yes.
Okay. So the next paragraph, and this is about the last we'll do with your report, is where you say, it's my experience that no two vehicles share the same headlight spread pattern analysis. We've already covered that, right? You stand by that?
Yes.
All right. So in this particular case, you came down and you did a reverse projection test. And,
Yes.
and as I understand that, you will take, in this case, I think 11 other vehicles, was it 11?
Yes.
That are provided to you, unrelated to anything. You take the known vehicle, correct?
Yes.
And you would put it out in front of these surveillance cameras in a particular spot.
Yes.
And then it would be photographed, right?
Correct.
And then you take one of those 11 test vehicles and you put it in the exact same spot.
Yes, and by photograph, just to be clear, images were captured, recovered from the digital video recording system.
Right. That's what I mean.
Yes.
So that's how you did the reverse projection.
Correct.
Now, when it came to, and this all comes down to really, as we talked about, the difference being the headlight spread pattern analysis.
No, that's not what that was for.
No. I'm saying that's what I'm getting to. In terms, we talked about the difference between one of those vehicles tested and the known vehicle. One of the only differences was the headlight spread pattern.
Correct.
Okay, so in order to do that, you couldn't use the known vehicle at the time because it had been changed in the headlights, right?
Well, we couldn't do the headlight spread pattern comparison to the question vehicle. That had already been done by the police within a month or so of the incident. What I could do long afterwards, because the headlights had been changed, was I could compare the physical features of the vehicle to determine class, so not the pattern. However, the patterns could be tested between all the vehicles just to demonstrate differences.
Right. My point to you was that what the local police did, obviously they came to you for your expertise, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You were not able to do what they tried to do before you got involved with the known vehicle, correct?
Yes, well...
You could have, but it would not have been very valid.
Well, there were two tests. One I could do, one I couldn't do.
Right. I'm talking about the headlight spread pattern.
Correct, yes. I couldn't do anything to test the headlight spread pattern of the known vehicle because I knew that the headlights had been changed, so the test would have had no purpose.
So you were provided a video that was produced by local law enforcement where they took, or they told you they took the known vehicle and drove it by these surveillance videos. And that's what you were provided.
Yes, and their purpose for doing that was to compare what the vehicle appeared to be. They didn't have any concept of headlights at that time.
Okay.
It just so happens
I just don't want you to speculate why they did it. I just want to ask you questions. That's all. That's what they gave you?
That's what they gave me, yes.
Okay. And when did they give you that, roughly? And I'm not going to hold you a specific date. I'm just trying to get an idea.
End of 2014, roughly.
And when did they produce that video? Do you know?
February of 2014.
So you're aware that the alleged incident in this case was on December 18th, 2013?
Yes.
Okay. And the police drove that known vehicle by the surveillance cameras to get information that they later gave to you in February of 2014?
Yes, that's correct.
Which is about 2 months later, give or take.
No, they gave this to me about 8 months later, I think.
No, I mean when they produced it in February 2014. That's
Yes.
about 2 months after December 18th.
Correct.
Okay. Are you aware that during those 2 months that my client continued to use his vehicle day in and day out in ordinary life?
I don't know how long he had the vehicle for before the police seized it.
Okay. Now, if I told you that he had been driving that truck for 2 months, hitting bumps, floods, everything else, would that make a difference to you? If you didn't have your hands on the known vehicle pretty quickly?
No. The patterns shift over time for various reasons. Whether 2 months would be enough to make a shift to the point where with the resolution I had, there would be differences. In this case, there weren't. So I can't say whether his activity would have had any impact. There wasn't any change at that time, so I don't know how much driving was actually done, how many speed bumps were hit.
Are you saying there wasn't any change from December 18th to February 2014?
There's no discernible change in the headlight spread pattern between those dates, correct?
My point to you is what you are looking at, correct? So in that 2 months, driving that truck around, could he get dirt on the composite lens?
Yes, he could.
Could he have a rock flip up and put a little nick in it that may change the headlight pattern? Now, how long does it take for that to happen?
Well, I didn't see that in any of the photographs. There's no damage to the lights. I mean, I certainly concede that a lot of things could have happened to that vehicle. There is, as I said, there's no discernible difference between the questioned vehicle headlights and the known vehicle headlights. In that 2-month period of time, what could have been done? You know, anything could have been done with it.
Okay.
They obviously couldn't have been changed. Couldn't have been removed and put back because you can't replicate the headlight pattern.
Now, in terms of, I want to ask you what your understanding is, because on direct you talked, Ms. Livesay asked you about peer review, okay? Would you agree with me that what that means is if I come up with some scientific concept or a concept, that I would write an article about it and submit it to a journal or somewhere so that peers in the industry could review it?
Well, if you're writing a document for publication, then that would be the process. To have it published in a peer-reviewed journal, yes.
Okay. So when you're answering her questions about peer review, you're saying that not any study or not your report was peer-reviewed. Is that correct?
Well,
not an article.
My report was not intended for a peer-reviewed journal. I gave this to a competently qualified, certified forensic video analyst to review the methodology and to evaluate my opinions. And that's different from submitting something to a peer-reviewed journal for publication.
You gave it to a colleague to look at.
Yes.
You gave it to him the night before we had the motion about your testimony in this case, correct?
Correct.
And he emailed you back a 2-paragraph letter saying, looks good to me, correct?
Well,
Something along those. Do you have the letter?
no, I think
Okay.
that counsel has it. That's not an accurate description of the content of the letter.
He got your report on Sunday.
He conducted a appropriate peer review and responded in writing.
All right, but let me end with this. He got your report on a Sunday and emailed you his review on a Monday.
No, he had the report longer than that.
Okay. He emailed you his review right before our hearing.
It was an issue coming up to the hearing, and I said, would you provide me with a written response to the peer review you did, just so we had it on record. So that was provided to me the day before, just for the record.
You don't recall that letter just basically saying your report's well put together and well written, basically?
I believe the description was that he agreed with the methodology, the foundation, and the conclusions.
All right.
I don't think he used the words, looks fine to me.
Now, you talked about, with Ms. Livesay, reverse projection being like any other kind of scientific thing that's used, like footwear and fingerprint and tire tread. And I get that. Are you attempting to put headlight spread pattern analysis that they're unique to any vehicle anywhere in the same category as fingerprint evidence and footwear impression evidence.
Yeah, no, I'm not doing that. What I'm saying is that headlight spread pattern is one of the features that in vehicle comparison we evaluate, we look at, and we compare. It is a reflection off the roadway. It's a feature of the vehicle. It has to be considered, and it's considered in this case.
And in this case, was the only difference between the last vehicle you tested and the known vehicle, outside of the toolbox issue?
That's correct.
Okay. Which makes it a pretty important issue in this case, wouldn't you say? I mean, that's what you're hinging your opinion on, is headlight spread pattern.
I agree that it's an important observation, certainly.
Okay. Now, I want to know, when you're going to do something like this and you want to do a test, and you did, a pretty extensive test, the known vehicle was a 2013 Ford F-150, is that correct, with HID lights?
Yes.
The vehicles that they gave you to do your reverse projection study, will you please, in your report, will you please tell us what vehicles those were? The 11 vehicles.
And to be clear, these vehicles were vehicles that it was a consultative process because I wanted to compare vehicles of other classes, because that's the most fair comparison to answer the question, is it possible another make and model other than a Ford 150 could be the question vehicle? So I'll read these vehicles off again, and these are vehicles that we collectively chose together based on my interviews with vehicle experts and with examining the vehicles. Chevrolet Silverado 2013, black in color. Chevy Silverado 2014, silver gray in color. These were all king cabs, by the way, so they all have the same basic features. Dodge Ram 1500 2013, black. Dodge Ram 1500 Laramie 2013, and the GMC Denali 2008, black. All of them appear on their face to look very, very similar. So those were all tested. Those were different makes and models. And then the following are all Ford F-150s. 2014 4x4 red with HID, and all of them have HID lights. So these are the HID lights were only available during a couple of years. And the sort of really limits the number of possible vehicles of Ford it could be, because it had to be an HID. So again, 4x4.
Mr. Fredericks, can I ask you just to list the vehicles for me?
Yes, sir. 4x4 red, the 2014 King Cab Ranch black, the 2013 Lariat black, 2014 Lariat red, 2014 Platinum black, and then the 2013 Limited black, which was the same make and model as the known.
All right.
And then, of course, the known.
So you took and invested a lot of time in taking the still. You told me it was kind of a difficult process to go through and have the trucks placed in the exact same spot and go through that whole process. Takes time, right?
Well, the first one takes the time at each position. The other vehicles, since the tires were marked, they could then be driven into the position, and sometimes they had to be realigned because they weren't driven perfectly. But once they were on the tire marks, then we could establish they were in the same position.
Okay. So it wasn't that difficult a process? Just more time consuming than difficult?
Difficult for the first vehicle.
Okay. In order to make your report and your comparison and to come up with some kind of conclusion to give to the state, you got a known Ford F-150 Limited 2013. That's the known vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Out of the vehicles that you're going to test, and we're talking about headlight spread pattern analysis, you chose, or together chose, a Chevy, a Dodge, a GMC, a 2014 4x4 F-150, a 2014 Ford F-150, which is a Ranch edition, a 2014 F-150 Lariat edition, a 2014 F-150 Platinum edition. The only vehicle in this whole list that is the same year class as the known vehicle is the 2013 Limited, correct?
Correct.
So was it any surprise to you that it came down to those two?
I'm sorry?
Was it any surprise to you that it came down to you looking at these two in the headlight spread pattern analysis?
Well, as I said,
in other words, you eliminated all the other ones.
Wait a minute. You now let him answer
Yes,
the question before you compound.
Yeah, I didn't do a headlight spread pattern analysis when I was there. I used the police drive-by for the headlight spread pattern analysis. That was the purpose of that. This particular exercise was to test and demonstrate that vehicles in different classes can be distinguished and eliminated. That's what this purpose was. And the only one that couldn't be eliminated was another Ford F-150 2013 Limited vehicle. I couldn't assess the headlight spread pattern. All of the other vehicles, including all of the other F-150s that were not the Limited, could be eliminated because of different reflections. The other vehicle makes models because of size and reflection. And by reflection, I don't mean headlight reflection.
Right,
I mean reflections of the vehicle.
From toolbox or any other thing that reflects off.
No, manufacturing
Okay.
features of the vehicles all could be eliminated except another 2013 Limited black Ford F-150. So
Okay.
without the headlight spread pattern, all of the vehicles could be eliminated except that one.
All right. Was there a headlight spread pattern analysis done on the Chevy, the first Chevy?
I did do a headlight analysis presentation on all of them, just to demonstrate that every one of them has a uniquely defined headlight spread pattern. None of these vehicles have the same pattern. They were all different. So I did that in the report just to demonstrate that under these controlled conditions, 12 randomly selected vehicles have 12 different headlight spread patterns, even though 7 of them are using HIV lights.
And even though 10 of the 11 are different vehicles than the known vehicle?
Correct, yeah. The purpose was just to show that vehicles have different headlight spread patterns and also to compare all other King Cab vehicles against the Limited to show that they can all be defined.
Does it surprise you that a GMC headlight spread pattern analysis would be different from a Ford F-150 Limited?
Not at all.
Okay. Now, the police, at some point in time, removed the headlights from his vehicle. You aware of that, right? It's in your report.
Yeah, I don't think it was his vehicle at the time, but yes, the police removed the headlights before I was involved in the case.
Okay. Now, when was that?
That was before I was involved.
How do you know it was before you were involved, if you don't know when they were removed?
We had a discussion at the time, and prior to me going to do the testing. Now, I was involved in the case starting in November of 2014, and in January of 2015, I did the on-site comparison. So in that time period, I was told that the headlights had been recently removed and then placed back. And I said, well, in that case, I can't compare the headlights of that vehicle because they've been removed. They're going to be different. And in fact, when we did the tests, I demonstrated and said, see, they're different from when you did the drive-by. Same vehicle, same headlights, they're completely different from when they did the drive-by.
Of course, indulgence, Your Honor. when you testified about hours and hours of footage that was showing all the vehicles that went up and down that road, I think it came out to 3,910 trucks.
That's correct.
You didn't examine, you said you examined all those trucks. You didn't examine them the way you examined in your report, the trucks, did you?
No, because I had a lot of familiarity with what I was looking for, because I'd spent that time examining the questioned and the known vehicles, I knew the features that I was looking for. So going through the vehicles, they were all marked, all the trucks that were on video. I could go through and hit a button to the next vehicle, and I'm looking for features. So the vehicles would have, there'd be vans, they'd be trucks with, big, completely different features. So I'm looking for pickup trucks that could not be distinguished, so no differences. Every vehicle I examined had some differences, so I was able to eliminate them.
And these were surveillance pictures from the day and night, right?
Day and night, correct.
So let's assume that truck number 3010 was a truck at night.
Yes.
What I'm asking is, you did not take the headlight spread pattern and lay it over top of the known vehicle headlight spread pattern on your computer like you presented to us today?
No, I absolutely did on many occasions, yes.
Okay. Is that in your report, that you did those exams? You did a headlight spread pattern analysis on these trucks?
I don't have 3,000 pages in my report. I went through all the vehicles and eliminated them all, and I did a number of different processes to do that. I didn't explain what I did to eliminate vehicle 3,910 or 3,908. I just looked at them all. I have a record of every vehicle. We have all of those images still in our system, and I reported that. I wasn't asked. All those images are available to defense. They're still in my system.
I wanted to ask you in your report about the timing offset issue. And the one thing I wanted to ask you is very simple. When you mention that you put in, I wouldn't say it's a disclaimer, but you put in your report, when you're explaining the timing offsets and how it could be different, you put specifically in there that you are assuming that you were provided by the police correct information.
Correct.
Okay. So if you were not, then there may be an issue with your report in regards to timing offset. That's an assumption you've made.
The date and timestamp is not my evidence. I was told by the investigators the relationship between real time, and so I use that.
You've testified in a number of trials, correct?
Yes.
All over the place?
Yes.
All over the world?
Yes.
Okay. You're based out of Spokane?
Correct.
Okay. Are you familiar with the Ryan Holick case?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have some problems in that case with your testimony?
I didn't testify in that case.
Or your report, I'm sorry.
No, I had no problems with it.
Did you, let me ask you this, do you recall that this had to do with whether or not a kid was hit by an off-duty police officer driving by?
No, it's not correct.
That's not correct.
No.
Ryan Holick,
Yes.
that he was not on a bicycle, and you reported that he was not hit by the vehicle after you reviewed the video.
Well, it wasn't an off-duty police officer. It was a police officer going to a domestic violence call, covering another officer without his emergency equipment on.
Okay.
I did an independent analysis of the video I wasn't told what any of the other independent analysts, there were 4 others, we all came independently to the same conclusion that the boy was not struck by the officer, and there was no forensic evidence to support that he was struck by the officer. The boy lost control of his bike, went to the ground, hit his head on the ground, and died as a result of those injuries. The vehicle was going 70 miles an hour. It was an SUV. There was no injuries consistent with being struck by a vehicle. And all the independent experts, we all came independently to the same conclusion.
Did you learn thereafter that the young boy's DNA was found on the bumper of that vehicle?
There was transfer DNA attributed to one of the attendees at the scene who dealt with him and then touched the vehicle. And that's transfer DNA. There was no blood. There was no dents, no damage.
The boy's DNA was on the bumper?
Correct.
And his hat was found in the middle of the intersection?
Yes.
Okay. You familiar with the Zim case?
Yes.
Okay. Otto Zim?
Yes.
That was a mentally disabled individual who died after a confrontation with Officer Carl Thompson.
That's correct.
And these cases I'm asking you about are in your home neck of the woods, Spokane.
They're the only 2 cases I've done in Spokane, yes.
Okay. You wrote a report in 2006 that says that this individual, the mentally disabled individual, and the officer struggled, and this is from your review of the video, struggled on the ground for 1 minute and 13 seconds before the officer used his baton. You remember that?
Yes.
Do you remember having to revise that report?
Yes.
Okay. In fact, the first one was not completely correct.
No. The first one was correct. The question I was asked was how many strikes of the baton in a particular area of the store. So the officer went into the store, it was a robbery call, went into the store, confronted Otto Zim. He had his baton in his hand. There was no strikes at that point, no evidence of any strikes. They then moved down an aisle into another area of the store, and there were movements of the baton that couldn't be defined as contact. Then they went to another part of the store where there were, I think, 11 strikes of the baton, all on his legs, none of which caused any injury to Zim. So my report was accurate. The issue was my client was the Department of Justice, the FBI, in the prosecution of the officer.
Would that be the U.S. Attorney's Office?
Correct. The issue was excessive use of force, and the case was brought against the officer based on he immediately entered the store and began to strike Otto Zim. That's false. I was retained by the Department of Justice for 4 years on that case and did a significant amount of work developing exhibits on different issues. The attorney that hired me and kept me on retention for 4 years and paid me well for that falsified my evidence. He called me to court, kept me in a back room, and didn't call me to testify.
Which attorney is that?
Tim Durkin. And I hired an attorney, and when I found out that the evidence was falsified, my client fabricated evidence and put my name on it. So I hired an attorney, and we went to the federal judge, and we said, that was not my evidence, and I completely rejected it. The judge evaluated all of my communication, which was in writing, with the attorney, and he agreed. And he wrote a finding that the U.S. federal attorney withheld the evidence from the defense. And that's where that case is. And my evidence didn't change.
You were working with the Department of Justice or the defense attorney?
Department of Justice was my
You were
client.
in 2001, the U.S. Attorney's Office, Justice Department, prosecutors filed a court document saying that your finding was directly in conflict with the officer's own statement that he did deploy several immediate and severe blows with the baton.
Not 2001. That would have been
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
There is a discrepancy as to when he says when it was immediate. The Department of Justice wanted him to be immediately applying blows as he walked in the door. The officer began to apply blows after that, after Zem picked up a bottle off the shelf and held it over his head. That's when the blows, or that's when the use of the baton started. So, your initial question is, did I change my evidence? No.
Mm-hmm. Because somebody else forged your name.
Well, they didn't forge my name. They wrote a disclosure document called a Part 16A, which is a federal disclosure saying, here's what our witnesses are going to say. And it was what I refused to say and fought with the attorney and said, I'm not going to say that. And I've been doing this a long time. And I'm not going to have one of my clients tell me what they want me to report.
Mm-hmm. You're aware the federal prosecutors also in the Zem case filed a document saying that you lied about how you got involved in the case.
This is another case. You're asking questions.
This is
about
the same case.
The same case we've just been talking about.
Yes.
Well, you've covered it, but we're not going to retry that unless you're prepared to present the order of the judge.
I've got documentation.
Well, I don't know what that has to do with
it. Goes to credibility.
No, sir. I'm ruling that you move on to something else.
I got nothing further.
Thank you, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor.
And that decision was made under 611A, which the rule allows me to do, in my opinion. All right, you may come down, sir. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll let you go to the jury room for just a moment. Mr. Frederick, I've asked you to please remain in the courtroom just for a second. So thank you, sir. To preserve the record, if you wish to examine it further concerning that, you may do so, sir.
No, sir, I'm satisfied.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you, sir. You may leave. With respect to... no, that's fine. We don't need to put anything else on the record. Okay? All right. Who's your next witness?
Single next to call Officer Will Lynch to the stand. Socastee requested.
All right. Let's bring it. We need a break. Kirk, you ready to go?
I'm ready.
Okay. Let's bring in a jury. You'll tell us. make this statement for the record. Hold on just a second. For the record, concerning the witness, I want it clear. I will not restrict you from calling anyone who will contradict you. I just want that clear. Because that was my rationale. You've really challenged him, and you've laid the foundation to impeach that testimony should that be necessary. So I just want to be clear. Okay, that's fine. Thank you, sir.
I understand that rule.
Well, I appreciate your patience with the board. Thank you. Yes. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We'll continue to call you next.
Thank you, Your Honor. This time the state calls Will Lynch to the stand.
Will Lynch, L-Y-N-C-H.
Officer Lynch, where are you currently employed?
Currently, I'm employed with the city of North Myrtle Beach here in South Carolina.
Okay, and how long have you been in law enforcement?
Almost 22 years, about 21 and a half years.
Okay, and where were you employed in December of 2013?
December of 2013, I was employed with the city of North Myrtle Beach, but I was at that time assigned to the 15th Circuit Solicitor's Drug Enforcement Unit. It's a multi-county jurisdictional drug enforcement unit.
Okay, and if you don't mind, tell this jury in 22 years what kind of training you've undergone with law enforcement.
I've had numerous classes to include accident reconstruction classes, several accident reconstruction classes. I initially rode a motorcycle and worked traffic for the city. I've had numerous investigative classes, which included drug recognition type classes because I was assigned to narcotics for 10 years. And really for this case, I've had training in Celebrate.
Okay, and if you don't mind, tell this jury what Celebrate is and what kind of training you've had.
Celebrate is the name of a company that offers two devices that, in layman's term, takes information off of portable devices such as cell phones, tablets, GPS units, things of that nature. And I originally was trained in 2011, August of 2011, by a company called Forward Discovery, which is in Virginia.
Okay, and if you don't mind, what exactly does Celebrate do when you hook a phone to it?
Celebrate is basically, it's a computer. It's a read-only computer, which means that you cannot input any information onto the device itself. And basically, it takes whatever information the user has put onto that device, such as your cell phone or your GPS or tablet. It pulls that information onto some type of storage media where it can be read, on a piece of paper, basically.
Okay, so basically it takes all the information off your phone and dumps it in a report.
That's correct.
Contacts, messages, phone calls, images, etc.
Yes, correct.
Okay, and how many phones have you used Celebrate on?
I would say between 100 and 200 phones at least. It could be a little more, but it's probably upwards of close to 200 phones.
Okay, and if you don't mind, tell this jury how it works if someone deletes something off their phone and then you celebrate it.
Well, basically, there are different extractions that you can use from the Celebrite itself, whether you just want to pull off information that you and I could basically just go through and look on the cell phone, which is there for us to see. And you can also do extractions where it goes a little bit deeper into the phone and takes deleted information. Deleted information isn't necessarily deleted, it's wiped off the phone, but it's still in the phone itself. So a lot of times deleted information will stay on that phone for quite some time.
Okay, and did you have an occasion to use Celebrate in the case we're here today for?
Yes, I did.
And I'm going to ask you, do you recognize State's Exhibit 68?
Yes, I do.
And if you don't mind, tell this jury what it is.
This is the extraction report for a cell phone that I did back on December 24th of 2013. It's just a complete report of the information that was taken off the phone when I did the extraction.
If you don't mind, does the report indicate who the phone belongs to?
It does. It has a device name and a display name, and it says Sidney's iPhone. It also has an Apple ID that's associated with it, which says, I believe, Sidney Moorer 78@gmail.com.
Okay, and does it tell you the phone number that belongs to that phone?
It does. It says the phone number for this particular phone is 843-385-3175, I believe.
Okay. And at this point, Your Honor, the state wishes to move State's Exhibit 68 into evidence.
I really don't have an objection. I just need to see what the dates were, from what day to what day. Sure. So I'm looking at the same thing right here. Can I go up again? How you doing?
Good. Good to see you.
No objection. Very well.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
What number is it?
Those are just excerpts off that report.
68. State 68 submitted without objection.
Can you write that for me, please? Officer Lynch, if you don't mind, look through here and tell me what you're looking at.
What I'm looking at appears to be an excerpt from my original report, and this particular excerpt would have come from the timeline report that was done when you do the extraction. It actually will take everything that's been done on that phone and put it in chronological order. It will do a report where everything is categorized, such as SMS, MMS, incoming calls, outgoing calls, and then it'll also do a timeline report where it puts everything in chronological order, so you can see what the person did or this phone did, every minute, every second of every day in chronological order.
Okay. And if you don't mind, do those messages indicate who those messages are between?
It would be between the phone itself, Sidney Moyer's phone, and to another phone number.
And is that phone number listed on the records?
It is
And what is that phone number?
843-997-8152.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, the state wishes to publish excerpts from the report. Officer Lynch, if you don't mind, tell the jury what they're looking at right now. Thank you.
They're looking at, again, this is the part of the timeline report where there are incoming and outgoing text messages or SMS messages between Sidney's phone and the phone number that I just gave out.
And if you don't mind, tell the jury what those messages say. I know I can't read them from here.
In the timeline report, just to give you guys a little clarification, in the timeline report, it starts at the most recent activity and goes backwards. So we're actually going to start at the bottom of the page. As you can see, if you look at the time, if you can see the time, it goes up in time. So
now, if you don't mind, Mr. Lynch, before we get too far, this time says UTC. So what does that mean?
UTC is a universal time code, or universal time coordinator is what it stands for. And you will either add or subtract hours depending on where you are in the world to get the time that it is at that point in time in that location. It's just a standard time that military uses, or other people, government may use all around the world.
Okay, so, and what is the time off from UTC to Eastern Time?
Depending on the time of year, daylight savings time, or if it's obviously not daylight savings time, it could be 4 or 5 hours. In this particular case, I believe it was a 5-hour difference. On November 2nd of 2013, it would have been a 5-hour difference of time. So you'd have to take that UTC time and subtract 5 hours to give you the time it was here on East Coast.
Okay. If you don't mind, tell these jurors what the messages are as far as what message is coming in and what message is going out.
Again, you'll start from the bottom, and that's a incoming SMS message from that phone number to Sidney's phone, and they're just saying, the person is saying Sidney. And then right up above it, Sidney's phone responds yes or yeah. And then again, Sidney's phone responds, what's up? Again, Sidney's phone above that responds, who the fuck is this? And then Sidney's phone again responds, why would you fucking text at 12:30 and not respond? And then the person then responds, what in the world?
Okay, and when you say the person responds, what phone number is responding back?
That would be the 843-997-8152 is responding back to Sidney's phone, what in the world?
Okay, and that's already been put into evidence as Heather Elvis's phone number.
Okay.
And this is, when you say the timeline, this is just as if you're looking at it on your phone scrolling down.
That's correct.
And so this is exactly in the order as that phone is receiving messages and sending messages.
That's correct.
Okay. And does this conversation continue on with the phone and Heather Elvis's phone?
It does.
Okay, and if you don't mind, tell us about some of the rest of the messages.
Some more of the messages, which we finished off before with what in the world. If you go on up above that, you have another call coming from Heather's phone to Sidney's phone. It says, sorry, my phone was fucking up all night, wouldn't let me answer calls, and then it just froze, but you've got some explaining to do. And then above that, Sidney's phone responds to Heather's, why is that? And then Sidney's phone responds to Heather's phone, who is this? And then Heather's phone responds back to Sidney, nobody you need to worry about anymore. And then Sidney's phone responds back to Heather's phone, you want to call me right now and explain yourself? It would be the wise thing to do.
And does this conversation continue on?
It does continue on.
Now, when it's yes, all the way to the right, what does that indicate?
The yes all the way to the right in red would indicate that that message was deleted from the phone.
Deleted, but yet Celebrate recovered it.
That's correct. It just basically went to an unused portion of the phone and just sat still.
Now, let me ask you this. If I looked at that phone right now, would I be able to see that deleted message?
No, you would not.
Okay. If you don't mind, tell us about as the conversation progresses.
All right, so I think we just went through that. You got to call and explain yourself. And the next thing says, after that, there's an instant message that just says what, and then it shows that it's been deleted. And then after that, there is a message from Heather's phone to Sidney's phone, it says, so when does Sidney get his phone back? And then Sidney's phone responds to Heather's phone, this is him, but we can't talk anymore. And then Heather's phone responds to Sidney's phone, can you just call for a minute? And then Sidney's phone responds to Heather's phone, no, I love family. And then Heather's phone responds to Sidney's phone, ha, okay.
And is there any further conversation after that, or is that the end?
No, there's more conversation after that.
Okay, and after this, who sends the next text?
After the ha, okay, the next text came from Sidney.
And
or
what
Sidney's
is,
phone.
okay, and what at that time does he send to Heather Elvis?
He sends a message that says, sorry, I made a mistake.
And then what is the next text?
Heather responds back to Sidney's phone and says, you knew what you were doing. It was no mistake. I understand this can't go on anymore. I just want to know that your wife isn't going to show up at my job. And then the next message from Heather's phone to Sidney's phone says, because I lost hours today because they sent me home after she kept calling.
Okay, and is that in the conversation?
No, there's a few more.
Okay, and then who texts next?
The next text would have come from Sidney's phone to Heather's phone, and it says, she doesn't care about you, it's fine, she has a boyfriend. And then there's another message after that from Sidney's phone to Heather's phone. It says, she was just mad at me for lying. And then there's another one after that from Sidney's phone to Heather's phone. It says, wants me to take some tests to make sure I didn't catch anything from you. And that, again, has the yes beside it in red, which means it was deleted.
Okay, so that message, she wants me to take some tests to make sure I didn't catch anything, that had been deleted.
That's correct.
Okay, now was that the end of the conversation?
No, there's more conversation after that.
Okay, and is this continuous conversation between Sidney and Heather Elvis?
It is.
Okay, and what is,
What's that?
It's misleading, it's facts not evidence, it's the phone. I'm sorry, the objection is that it is misleading and it's facts not
All right,
evidence.
you can cross-examine, but we need to, this is evidence, the jury's going to have it, so let's do what you're going to do. We don't need to keep interrupting. If he wants to publish it, let him publish it, but let's move on because the jury will have this to read when they go to the jury.
thank you, Your Honor, and tell this jury how the conversation progresses.
Well, just they continue on having conversation, apparently about a relationship.
And what does it say?
There's a text message that says, after the wants to meet, take some tests, it says, it's from Heather to Sidney's phone. It says, then why does this have to end if she's got a boyfriend? Stop being such a pushover and letting her control you. And then there's a text message from Sidney's phone to Heather's phone. It says, I can't do it anymore. It's not right. Heather's phone then responds to Sidney's phone, yes, okay. Sidney's phone responds to Heather's phone, what did you want to talk about? Then Heather's phone responds to Sidney's phone, I think you're a little obsessed with me. And then Sidney's phone responds to Heather's phone, nah, it was a bore.
And most of those messages indicate yes, that they had been deleted?
Yeah, 4 out of those 7 had, on that page right there are shown deleted.
Okay. And is that the end of the conversation?
No, there's still more conversation between the two.
Okay, and if you don't mind, tell this jury how the conversation progresses.
After not was a bore, there's another text message from Sidney's phone to Heather's phone. It says, if you want to speak, to call me now. Otherwise, leave me alone forever. And then Heather's phone responds to Sidney's phone, really? So that's why you're still childishly childishly texting me from your cheating husband's phone. And then Sidney's phone responds to Heather's phone, call the number, it's me. And then Heather's phone responds to Sidney's phone, you call. Then Sidney's phone responds to Heather's phone, nah. Then Heather's phone responds to Sidney's phone, Sidney. Then Sidney's phone responds to Heather's phone, what? And again, Sidney's phone responds to Heather's phone, your skank ass needs to leave me alone. And then again, Sidney's phone responds to Heather's phone, stop stalking me, you crazy fucking whore.
Okay. And had any of those messages been deleted?
Yes, 6 of those messages had been deleted.
Okay. So not all of them, just a portion of
Just
them?
a portion of them, that's correct.
Okay. And is that the end of that conversation?
It is.
Okay. Now, did his phone recover any information from the morning of December 18th?
Yes, it did.
Okay. And did it recover phone calls and any text messages?
It did recover some phone calls.
Okay. And if you don't mind, let's look at that with the jury.
Okay?
What time frame was he making phone calls that night?
On the 18th, it would have been between 1:09 a.m. all the way up to 3:41 a.m.
Okay. So from 1:09 to, I believe we're looking at 1:13, he was using the phone? Is that correct?
Well, from 1:09, he used the phone from 1:09, 1:13, 1:13 to 3:17, and so on all the way up to 3:41 in the morning.
Okay. So when he's making a phone call at 1:09 or 1:13, is that registering tower data?
No, it's not registering tower data. Well, not on the Celebrite, it's not.
Okay. Are you familiar enough with phone activity to know whether or not when a phone is used, if it pings off of a tower?
Yes.
Okay. And when he was making phone calls here, would it have pinged off of a tower?
Yes, it would have.
Okay. And that tower would indicate,
Hold on a second, Mr. Jackson.
The fact's not the evidence. I don't see anything at 1 a.m. I don't know if it's a
Lay the
misread.
sustain, lay the foundation, otherwise he just needs to confine it to what's in the document.
certainly, Your Honor. Some evidence has already put in the record, Mr. Lynch, about, just to catch you up to speed so I can ask the question, that the victim was moving around during a certain time frame.
Okay.
Okay? And that time frame was between...
Objection. It's not a question, it's leading the witness.
I am going to ask the question, Your Honor.
This witness is called to testify about that document.
Yes.
And that's the extent. He's going to be qualified to become an expert to comment on other evidence, and you have to qualify. That, you can't just state what's been said. Let's confine it to this document.
I will. Was his phone used at 2 o'clock a.m.?
At 2 a.m.?
Yes, sir.
I can't tell from this report if it was used at 2 a.m.
Okay. So there's nothing on this report to indicate any phone call at 2 a.m.?
Not at 2 a.m., no, that's correct.
Okay. Is there a phone call on that report at 2:15 a.m.?
Not that I see at 2:15.
Okay. And is there a phone call at 2:30 a.m.?
Not that I see at 2:30.
Okay. Is there a phone call at 2:45 a.m.?
Not that I see at 2:45.
And is there a phone call at 3 a.m.?
Not that I see at 3 a.m.
It speaks for itself. We don't need to go through all the time.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. What is the next phone call you see on the Celebrate report?
I see 3:17 a.m.
Okay. And does that indicate whether or not a conversation took place?
It does.
And does it indicate how long that conversation took place?
It doesn't necessarily indicate. It looks like, if you're looking at the timeline, it looks like a call came in at 3:17 a.m. and then there was a voicemail left shortly thereafter.
May we please approach?
Mr. Agent Lynch, if you don't mind, take a look at your report from the 18th on.
Okay.
Tell me the last time this phone received a call from Heather's phone from 997-8152.
It would be at 3:41 in the morning.
Okay, and that was the last time you saw that phone number, Heather Elvis's phone number, contacted Sidney Moore's phone?
That's correct. A phone call came in from her phone number, yes.
Okay, and do you see any more activity on his phone later on December 18th, early morning, 4 o'clock, 4:30, 5 a.m., those hours?
Yes, I do see a couple, some instant messages.
Okay, and about what time are those messages?
Those would have been at about (4:37 in the morning, 4:38 in the morning.
Okay. So the next time the phone is in use after 3:17 is at 4:37.
4:37, that's correct.
Okay. And does it indicate whether or not those messages have been deleted?
It does. It indicates that those messages had been deleted.
Okay. No further questions for this witness, Your Honor.
Have you got the main records up there?
I do. Yes, sir.
Can I see that?
Yes, sir.
How you doing?
I'm hanging in there.
You remember me?
Oh, yeah.
We started at the same time, didn't we?
Just about. Yes, sir.
I don't get to see that often. All right. The charts that were prepared up here with those text messages.
Yes,
The
sir.
first one was with Heather Elvis talking to the Sidney Moorer phone.
Yes.
The document that was shown up here you were looking at, are there some text messages in here that are left off of there, taken out?
Not in the timeline.
Okay.
If you go to the timeline section of the report, like I said, the report, when you do the report, it'll categorize everything first. It'll put all text messages together, MMS messages, incoming, outgoing. But when you go to the actual timeline, it puts everything in order. So what they went through was basically an excerpt from the timeline report.
Okay, would you look at 11-2 text 2:03:37 seconds? You got that one?
Which one is that? Or date?
It's this is at November 2nd. I can give you this back.
That's all right. Go ahead.
November 2nd, which is all the ones we were looking at first. That go from
Okay.
November 1 into November 2nd,
Okay.
the conversation.
All right.
At 2:03:37 a.m.
And that's on the 2nd?
Can I show you this and just ask you?
Yeah, that-
if you
absolutely.
recognize that? Let me grab another copy. This won't take long. Take your time. That's the text conversation we were just kind of going through. Is that
Okay.
correct? All right, if you look at November 2nd, what I was asking about was 2:01:42 seconds a.m.
Right.
And could you read that text and tell if that was sent from the Moorer phone?
I can't tell from this report.
Okay.
There's no numbers associated with it. And this is not on my report. If I'm mistaken, these are not on my report. I think someone else is going to talk about these.
Oh, okay. Are those in the master document here from Cellbrite?
I don't think they are. I can look for you though.
Does this document look familiar to you? Is that a Cellbrite document?
It is a Cellbrite document, yes.
So that's the same format and the same heading as the Cellbrite document as you've got here that's got everything in it.
That's
The
correct.
chances are, if you know what's on there is going to be in this, and you think somebody else is dropping.
Well, I know that this is mine because it has my name on it.
Okay.
It says me as the examiner. I don't know exactly where this came from without, any further, but I know this is mine because it has my name as the examiner.
All right, I'll just let me ask this: do you know, in the text messages that we went through that involved Heather Elvis, do you know whether or not those text messages were from Sidney or from Tammy?
I only know which phone it came from.
Okay. So it would be helpful to look at the context and the content of those texts to determine who's talking to who.
That would seem, yes, relevant, yes.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rita Radden,
No further questions, Your Honor.
thank you. Then you may step down.
Thank you.
You wish the witness to excuse.
Yes, sir, Your Honor, please.
Any objection to it being excused?
None, Your Honor.
You're free to leave, sir. Call your next witness, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're ready. Jim Perry.
Raise your right hand, place your left hand on the Bible. You solemnly swear or affirm the evidence you're about to give the court in this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
James Philip Perry, Perry.
And Mr. Perry, where are you currently employed?
The Grenville County Sheriff's Office,
And how long have you been in law enforcement?
33 years.
And what are your current responsibilities?
I belong to the Computer Crimes Investigation Unit of the Grenville County Sheriff's Office, and we do computer forensics, cell phone forensics, online predators, anything to deal with basically electronics
Okay.
investigations.
And if you don't mind, tell this jury a little bit about computer forensics, what you do and what you examine, and the kind of stuff you take off of phones and computers.
Okay. Computers and cell phone forensics are two different animals. Computers, for the most part, we do them the same way. We take the hard drive out of a computer, we connect it to a write blocker, which prevents it from being any information being transferred to it. Once we have it write blocked, we make an image of that total hard drive. Once we have an image, we work off that image and we connect it to our forensic machine, and then we have different forensic programs that we then begin the analysis of the hard drive.
And if you don't mind, tell this jury how many computers you have examined.
Since 2002 up to now, I've done over 300 computers. Cell phones, we started getting into those around 2005, and I've done well over 1,200 of those.
Okay. And in the course of your work, have you testified before as an expert about computer forensics and cell phones?
Yes, I've testified in state court, federal court, other jurisdictions that I've assisted in.
And how many times have you been qualified?
Qualified just one other time.
Okay. And did you examine anything for this case?
I did.
And what did you examine for this case?
I examined a HP Pavilion computer and an Apple iPhone 5.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, I'd like to ask Mr. Perry to be qualified as an expert in the forensic examination of computers and phones.
Without objection.
You'd be permitted to render opinions in those areas.
First of all, Mr. Perry, tell this jury, is it helpful to examine both someone's phone and computer at the same time?
It's always best to examine any amount of digital evidence that you get in a case, but cell phones and computers nowadays, you can actually connect your cell phone to your computer to do backups, to save your data and things like that. So it's always helpful to do you know.
And if you don't mind, tell this jury, is it possible to collect information that was on someone's phone off the computer?
Oh yes, it's definitely, you can get information from the computer if they've connected the cell phone to that computer.
Okay. And were you able, when you examined the computer and phone in this case, were you able to establish that that phone had been used or connected to Sidney Moorer and the HP Pavilion as well?
I was able to.
And if you don't mind, tell this jury how.
Well, there were two ways that I found that the computer and the cell phone were connected. When I did the forensics on the cell phone, I got a list of text messages that were recovered from the cell phone. I then, when I did the computer, I was able, in two different locations, I found a partial sample of the same text messages, dates and times on the computer that were still available on the cell phone.
Now tell me, before we start looking at what you found, were you able to find information off this defendant's computer that had come from his cell phone?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. And when you did Celebrate on the phone, did you do Celebrate on the phone?
I use Cellbrite, which is our, it's basically the top of the line forensic, cell phone forensic
Okay.
out there.
And were those text messages on his phone as well?
Some of them were, yes.
Okay. Were all of them?
Not all of them, no. Some that were on the computer were not on the, had been deleted from the cell phone.
Okay. And sometime, can you recover all deleted messages using Celebrate?
No, with cell phones, everything depends on the make, the model, the operating system it's using, as to what you can recover. And because cell phones are so much smaller as far as holding data, that when you delete something, it gets overwritten a lot faster than it does on a computer. So in this particular case, there were some text messages that were recovered. Well, I'm not even going to say recovered. They were backed up to the computer that were still on the computer. Some of them had been deleted off the cell phone. Some of them were recovered by the cell phone Cellbrite. Others were not recovered. So you had like three different ones. You had the ones that were still on the computer, or I mean on the cell phone. You had the ones that were deleted but were recovered by Cellbrite. And then on the computer you had some that were had been deleted off the cell phone but had not been recovered by Cellbrite.
Okay. So, but for looking at his computer, you have never been able to collect some of those messages from the phone?
Correct.
Okay. If you don't mind, do you mind going through what you collected off the computer? I'm sorry, I'm showing you now State's Exhibit number 70. I've already shown it to Mr. Trusley.
Okay.
No objection, she moved it into evidence.
Well, I know.
Yes, sir.
You can move it into.
No objection.
Without objection, 70 is admitted.
Thank you. If you don't mind, go through this with the jury. Is this what you collected off the phone or off the computer?
This right here came off the computer.
Okay. And if you don't mind, tell me, you've got up here messages from TenorShare. If you don't mind, tell this jury what TenorShare is.
Well, when I found these text messages that were actually on the computer, I started researching it, finding out how did they get put in there in a nice orderly spreadsheet. I found out that it was connected to a program called TenorShare. I did some research on TenorShare and found out that it is a program for backing up iPhones. So on the 13th, I believe it was, of November, he had plugged that into his computer, backed it up, and it automatically, the default is to save it in a Excel spreadsheet. So that's how this document got to be. He didn't actually sit there and type these out.
Okay.
This
so
was done by the
something on
program.
the computer when you plug your phone in creates this spreadsheet.
Correct.
And does it indicate what phone number the messages are between?
Well, this indicates that the messages are between the iPhone, which was labeled Sidney's iPhone within the phone, and 843-997-8152.
Okay. And looking at these, are these the messages that you collected from Cindy's iPhone?
They are.
Okay. And are these the messages that were collected off TenorShare?
They are.
Okay. And about how many messages are there?
I think there's right at 58.
Okay. And if you don't mind, tell the court, is there, for them to be able to understand, when it says received and sent, tell them what that means.
Okay. Well, received means that the iPhone, Sidney's iPhone, received a call from this number, the 843-997-8152.
Okay. And if you don't mind, publish those messages to this jury.
Okay. First one was a received message. It says Sidney. Next one was sent. That says yeah. Next one is sent again. What's up? Another sent message. Who the fuck is this? The next one is another sent message. Why would you fucking text at 12:30 and not respond? Next one is a sent message. Someone's about to get their ass beat down.
And these are messages going from Sydney's phone
to her.
Okay.
Then another one sent after that, you bitch is about to take his last breath. Then a message comes in, received message, what in the world? Then another received message says, sorry, my phone was fucking up all night. Al wouldn't let me answer calls, and then it just froze. But you got some explaining to do. Then a sent message, why is that? Another sent message, who is this? Another sent message, I frown upon people who hang up on me, not cool. Another sent message, you can tell me who you are right now, or I can find out another way. That way won't have a good turnout for you. A received message, nobody you need to worry about anymore. Sent message, you want to call me right now and explain yourself? It would be the wise thing to do. Let's see, another one sent, I've been having Sidney followed since January 2012. It's best you call back and speak immediately. Save yourself. Sent, I'll give you one last chance to answer me before we meet in person. Only one. Sent message again. Hey, sweetie, you ready to meet the missus? Sent message again. The kids want to meet you, question mark. Then a message comes in, received. So when does Sidney get his phone back? Sent message comes out. This is him, but we can't talk anymore. Received. Can you call just for a minute? Sent. No, I love family. Received. Ha, okay. Sent. Sorry, I made a mistake.
Does the conversation continue on?
It does.
And this continues on, and this is what you found off the computer?
Right.
Okay.
Now, let's see. These are the first couple, the first three are just evidently got transposed over. So you got to skip down to the received. You know what you were doing. It was no mistake. I understand this can't go on anymore. I just want you to know that your wife isn't going to show up at my job. Another receipt. Because I lost hours today because they sent me home after she kept calling. Sent message. She doesn't care about you. She has a boyfriend. Sent message. She was just mad at me for lying. Sent message. Wants me to take some tests to make sure I didn't catch anything from you. A received message. Then why does this have to end if she's got a boyfriend? Stop being such a pushover and letting her control you. Sent message. I can't do it anymore. It's not right. Received. Yeah, okay. Sent. You up? Received. Yes, why? Then a sent message. Good stuff. Received message. Don't worry, I'll put that to good use. Sent. You can call if you want. Sent message. DJ. You are silly. Little smiley face. Received. Who's DJ? Sent. You are DJ. Have you been drinking? LOL. Didn't. Sent message. Didn't you want to talk? You can call me. Received. Ha ha. Is that what he told you my name was? I guess you're right. He is a liar. Sent. Heather, you want to speak? Heather, you wanted to speak to me earlier. You can call now. Sent. What did you want to talk about? Received. I think you're a little obsessed with me. Sent. Nah, it was a bore. Sent. If you want to speak to me, call now. Otherwise, leave me alone forever. Sent. My daughter is getting this phone and number. Received. Really? So that's why you're still childlessly texting me from your cheating husband's phone?
So the end of the conversation?
No, there's a few after that.
Okay.
Let's see. And also, several of these are carryover, and it picks back up at a sent message. Call the number, it's me. Received, you call. Sent, nah. Received, Sidney. Sent, what? Sent, your skank ass needs to leave me alone. Sent, stop stalking me, you crazy fucking whore. And then received one that's just a period.
Okay. And is that the end of those line of text messages?
That's the end of the conversation between that phone number.
Okay. And were you able to figure out whether or not portions of these messages had been deleted off the phone?
I did.
Okay. And did you find those messages on Sidney's HP Pavilion?
I did.
Okay. And they were in something called unallocated space. Tell this jury what unallocated space is in the computer.
Basically, unallocated space is what anybody else probably refers to as the deleted area. When you delete something, it has to go somewhere on your computer, and it's the unallocated, which means that the computer can use that space, even though that deleted information is out there. At some point, the computer can overwrite that data, which when you're looking for deleted stuff, you may or may not get it, because if it's been overwritten, obviously it's gone. But if it hadn't been overwritten, then you can recover it.
Okay. And if you don't mind, show this jury what you were able to recover from that unallocated space or that portion of things that had been deleted.
Okay. Those would be these are going to match up to that spreadsheet that we just went over. As you can see up there, it says it's got the phone number that we're talking about, then it's got the date and time, it's a received message, Sidney. That was the first message that we just went over on the spreadsheet.
And when you look at it up here, is this the way it comes off the computer?
That's the way I saw it on the computer. bookmark that out of the computer. That's the way unallocated is. It's not real pretty like the spreadsheet. It just comes off however the computer likes to do it.
And as we're looking through here, these messages off the computer had been deleted, but they're the exact messages we saw from the spreadsheet.
That's correct.
Okay. And as we're scrolling through, there's no way in unallocated space to connect these messages. Is that correct?
To connect them to...
A number or a time and date?
Well, yeah, we can connect them to a time and date. The time and dates are preceding the actual messages.
Okay.
So the time and dates, normally in the unallocated space, you don't get metadata connected with things that you recovered. This is actually part of the way Tenorshare deletes it when they shut the program down. So the date and time is basically the date and time that was on the spreadsheet. So it just emptied it all at one time. So normally you wouldn't get that, but in this case you're able to.
Okay. And as we're looking through, these are the same messages coming off the computer, off the unallocated space.
That is correct.
Okay. And can we see the next one, please? And again, these are the same messages.
These are the same messages that came from the spreadsheet that came off the phone.
Okay. And again, these are the same messages coming off the computer.
Listen, you don't need to keep asking that. He's already clarified. Everything that we're looking at just came off the computer and he's connected. Let's move on from that.
Certainly, Your Honor.
The jury will, all of this, what the jury will have, they'll have a chance to go through it in great detail. They understand, he's explained the connections. Let's move on, so thank you.
And if you don't mind, Jim, tell us about the user dictionary that you used on the Celebrate report.
Apple phones have what they call a user dictionary. And what that does is when you're sending a text message and let's say you use a particular word a lot or you use a particular word that's, I guess a good example is like I work a side job back home and I have to send in a report at the end of the side job and I have to type, I type the word manner. Well, it spells it out as M-A-N-N-E-R, and I'm talking capital M-O-R, M-O-N-O-R, manner. Well, now, since I've used that several times, when I say manner, it automatically brings up the one I'm talking about, not the other one. So your cell phone learns what you're saying and helps you when you're typing or when you're doing a talk to text. So the user dictionary is something you build over time to help your phone be faster.
And is this showing that these words have been used on the phone and that's showing the spreadsheet where it had been used?
Right. These are some of the deleted text messages that were deleted from the phone. But you can see in the user dictionary, those words are showing up as having been used, and some of them are showing up as only been used once, which would indicate that during that particular text message.
Okay. So even though the text message is deleted, when you put that word in user dictionary, it's going to show up that word has been used. Is that correct? If a word has been used in a deleted text.
Yeah, it's still in the user dictionary.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Can we see the next one, please? And this is just showing where even though the text has been deleted, it's showing up that it has been used on that phone.
That's correct.
Okay. And if you don't mind, tell this jury what a powering event is.
Powering event just basically is the phone records when you turn the phone on. It creates a log of that date and time that you turn the phone on.
Okay. Now, tell this jury, does Celebrate is it able to sometimes collect location data when the phone is in use?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, and how does it do that? Tell the jury how it does that.
Well, it depending on what settings you have set in your phone, it'll gather different location information based on your settings. In this particular phone, we had location settings were turned on for photographs. So when pictures were taken, there were metadata being put into that picture to tell what date it was taken and the coordinates of where that picture was actually taken.
Okay. Now, the powering event showed when the phone is turned on. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Tell this jury, when the phone is off, is it able to collect any kind of location data as to where the phone is?
No.
Okay. And when was this phone powered on the morning of December 18, 2013?
Let's see. Back to, there's a 3 of them. I'll look at this. Let's see. On the 18th, it was powered on at 3:02, right 1/10 of a second before 3:03 a.m.
Okay. So at some point on the morning of December 18, 2013, the phone had been powered off and then was powered back on at 3:02 a.m.
Correct.
Okay. And during that time it's powered off, there's no way to collect any sort of location data?
No.
And when you further examined the phone, were you able to determine the last time that phone was in use on December 18th, before that powering event?
No, I don't have that information.
And let me ask you this. Were you able to collect some location data from the images on the phone?
I was.
Okay. And if you don't mind, were you able to tell whether or not that phone was in Horry County between November and December?
Between November and December 18th,
Yes.
it was in Horry County.
Okay. And at any point, was it outside of Horry County during November and December of 2013?
It was.
Okay. And if you don't mind, give the dates to the jury as to when this phone was out of town.
Okay. It was in the Myrtle Beach vicinity between November 5th, 2013 and November 11th, 2013. The next, and these are all based on pictures, so there can be times difference of why there's not anything showing up. They're having to take pictures to get this location device. So on November 23rd, 2013, they're west of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Continuing on 11/23/13, they're in Flagstaff, Arizona, and then between 11/24/13 and 11/27/13, they're in Las Vegas. Then on 11/29/13, they're in Thousand Oaks, California. Then on the 29th, continuing on that same date through the 6th of December 2013, they're in Anaheim, California. Then it starts to come back to east on the 6th of December 2013. They're west of El Paso, Texas. Then on the 7th of December, they continue, they're near Fort Stockton, Tennessee on I-10. And then on December 10th, they're in Atlanta, Georgia for the 10th and the 11th. After the 11th, there's no geolocation information available up to and including the 18th.
Okay. So after December 11th, that was the last location data you were able to collect?
Correct.
Did you collect any information off the phone from December 18th when you downloaded it?
I did get a voice message that came in that was like 1 second. There was no audio to it or anything else, and it was a number that was did not show up. So as far as being able to identify who it came from, I can't.
Okay. And there were, of course, the phone was celebrated prior to you looking at it. Why would something possibly show up on that Celebrate report and not show up on the one you did?
Well, if a Celebrate report had been done prior to my phone being, or my report, it could get information up to that date. Then from that date on, if information is deleted from the phone, and then I get it 2 months later and do a Celebrate report, it's going to be different because that information that's deleted can be overwritten and not show up.
And do you know whether or not Heather's phone number was ever put in Sidney Moore's phone as a contact?
It was.
And what was it in his phone as a contact as?
It was listed in contact as zoning NMB.
Okay. So that's the way it was in the contact list?
Correct.
Nothing else from this witness, Your Honor?
Just for clarity, sir, Mr. Perry, the text that we just went through with you were similar to the text we went through with the last witness, but they had texts that were inserted throughout. So am I correct in assuming what you did was you recovered texts that were deleted from the phone and then recovered from the computer?
Correct.
So then you were able to create the entire text conversation by doing that?
Well,
or at least what you recovered?
Actually, that was, I didn't create that. That was created by Tenashare when he backed the phone up on the 13th, I think it was.
Right.
So that was just created. I just recovered it.
But by virtue of your work, we were able to piece together a more complete conversation of this text conversation.
That is correct.
Okay. And I just got two quick questions, because I want to know sent, received. This one here that you mentioned, this is 2:01 a.m. Can you read that one and tell me if that was sent, or that's from the phone or to the phone?
No, that's sent.
Okay, what does that say?
I have been having Sidney followed since January of 2012. It's best you call back and speak immediately. Save yourself.
Okay. And just one last one, please. This one.
This one was a received call, and it says, so when does Sidney get his phone back?
Okay. Did you review these texts? I mean, you've read them, correct?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Is it fair to say, based upon you reviewing those, that the messages that were specifically deleted from the phone appear to be threatening in nature or possibly not from Sidney? Did you get that idea?
Definitely they were threatening.
Okay. And, I mean, you agree with me that Sidney's not going to have himself followed? Right, that doesn't make sense?
No.
Okay. And you have no idea who has Sidney's cell phone, who has possession of it during this time period?
No.
Or during the time period when he has to stop using payphone?
I don't know
If
about
he
the
had-
payphones.
All right. If you knew where there was a payphone, if somebody took your phone, you didn't have it, and you needed to make a phone call, would you use a payphone? If that was
If
your
I could
only option?
find one.
Yeah, right. All right, that's all I have, sir. Thank you.
Redirect.
Just one question. Who was the phone register to that you looked at?
It was, excuse me, Sidney's.
Okay. And the Tenashare messages, whose computer did they come off of?
Sidney's.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Recross.
Do you know whose name the bill was in?
I'm sorry.
Account holder who was billed for the phone?
Who was?
Who was the billing recipient for the phone?
I don't know personally. I don't know personally.
Thank you.
All right. We'll come there. Thank you, sir. Wish the witness to be excused.
Yes, please, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
Please leave. How long is the next witness?
And we would call Christine, you should not be very long.
Anybody need a break? Good. There you are.
Christine. Teams.
Place your left hand on the Bible. You solemnly swear or affirm that the evidence you're about to give before this case will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Christopher L. Teams, T-E-E-M-S.
Good afternoon, Mr. Teams. How old are you?
43,
43. And in what county do you currently live?
Horry County.
How long have you lived in Horry County?
Approximately 30 years.
Where do you work?
I work for Horry Electric Cooperative.
What kind of company is Horry Electric Cooperative?
Horry Electric is a member-owned electric company that provides electricity in Horry County.
And what's your current job there?
I'm manager of special services.
What all does being manager of special services at Horry County Electric Co-op involve?
I'm responsible for security investigations in regards to Horry Electric.
And how long have you been in that position?
About 14 years.
I'm sorry, that was 14 years? Mm-hmm. Now, Mr. Teams, do you know the defendant, Mr. Sidney Moorer?
I do.
How did you come to know him?
We make it a practice to go around the neighborhoods of our substations and get to know anybody that lives next door to our substations. From time to time we have problems with copper theft and trespassing and things. We had made a connection with Mr. Moore in reference to our substation next door to his house.
All right. You mentioned the word substation. Just for clarification, if anyone's not aware, what is an actual substation?
A substation is a facility that we have that our power is transmitted to from Santee Cooper, and then we just distribute it out to other members.
And how close was the defendant again to one of your substations?
Right across the street.
How often over the course of your time at Horry Electric Co-op do you think you've talked to the defendant?
Maybe 3 or 4 times.
All right. Mr. Teams, let me ask you, you have permission for the witness to come on the stand? I'll show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 66 at this point for identification purposes. Are you familiar with Horry County? Yes. Does this appear to be in every way a fair and accurate representation of the part of the county where they claim to show? Can you identify on this map where your substation is?
You stand to the side, team, so
Could it be in the upper left-hand corner?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Teams. And can you identify on that map also where the defendant's residence is?
Yes, sure.
All right, is that where, what is written where the defendant's residence is, if you can read that?
8796 Highway 814, Moore.
Is all of this a fair and accurate representation? Your Honor, I would tender into evidence State's Exhibit 66 for ID as State's Exhibit 66.
Okay.
offering it to evidence.
Yes, sir.
Submitted without objection.
Thank you. Mr. Stevens, have a seat. Now, Mr. Teams, how familiar are you with the substation that's across the street from the defendant's residence?
Pretty familiar.
On December 18, 2013, were there any surveillance systems or security cameras installed?
No,
Was there anything installed there that would make it appear that there was a security camera installed?
there was.
Sorry, what was installed?
Okay, sorry. We had installed some outdoor camera housings that they're made to hold the camera. We did it just as a deterrent for safety issues when we were having some problems at our different substations.
Was there a camera in any way installed at that substation?
There was not.
Did the housing have the ability to record or in any way memorialize the activities around it?
It did not.
Basically just a box.
Just a box.
Now, subsequent to December 18, 2013, was there ever any cameras put up?
No.
So there's no Horry County Electric Co-op cameras?
No, sir.
All right. After the events of December 18, 2013, did the defendant ever contact you asking for the footage of any sort of security camera?
No, sir.
Did anyone on his behalf ever contact you asking for security camera footage?
No, sir.
Thank the court's indulgence. No further questions, Your Honor.
Well, can I ask you a question? No, sir. Thank you. You may go ahead.
Thank you.
How long you been?
No, can we approach?
Sir. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the stop. Starting at 8:30. Thank you very much for that. Patience today as well. As you please return to your room by 9 o'clock in the morning. Please remember this. Still not at liberty to talk to anyone about this case, especially on yourselves. Again, may not watch any news accounts, read anything about it. It's very important. Then tomorrow morning we'll start. I just do the call here so we have a chance to finish the state's case by lunch. Just so that you know we're not wasting time. Thank you very much again for the attention today. It's great to see you one at a time. All right, anything from the state before recess?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you, Your Honor. You too.